Former Marine Captain Jack Morrison never expected to uncover a plot that would shake the foundation of everything he'd built since returning from Afghanistan. As he stood in the lobby of the Victory Heights Hotel, disguised as a disabled veteran, seeking employment, the whispered conversation he overheard would force him to confront not just a threat to his business, but a betrayal of everything he'd fought to protect. The October wind whipped fallen leaves across the courtyard of Victory Heights Hotel as Jack Morrison made his way through the bronze and glass doors, his prosthetic leg carefully concealed beneath loose-fitting cargo pants. The familiar scent of pine and coffee filled the grand lobby, though everything looked different from this angle. Gone was his tailored suit and commanding presence. Today, he wore scuffed boots and a weathered leather jacket that had actually seen combat in Kandahar. 10 years of success had transformed the former mountain lodge into a beacon of hope for veterans transitioning to civilian life. 5-star luxury mixed seamlessly with military tradition, unit flags hung proudly alongside fine art and display. Cases housed both Purple Hearts and hospitality awards. Today, however, Jack wasn't here to admire his creation. He was here to save it. "Welcome to Victory Heights, sir," greeted a young woman at the front desk. Her name tag read, Rebecca Martinez. Jack recognized her name from personnel files, or daughter of a Navy corpsman hired 3 months ago. "Do you have a reservation?" "Under James Cooper," Jack replied, intentionally roughening his voice. The name belonged to his best friend, killed by an IED in their final week of deployment. Using it felt both wrong and necessary. "Should be in the system." "Of course, Mr. Cooper. Give me just a moment to pull that up for you." Rebecca's fingers moved efficiently across the keyboard, her service family background showing in her crisp professionalism. While waiting, Jack surveyed the lobby through new eyes. A group of executives huddled near the massive stone fireplace, their designer suits contrasting sharply with the casual dress of most guests. Behind him, the murmur of conversations filled the space. Families on vacation, veterans attending. Next week's job fair, a therapy dog, gentle leading its owner toward the elevators. Then he heard it, 2 voices just behind him, speaking in low tones that nonetheless carried clearly in the marbled space. "Everything's set for tomorrow's meeting. Once the board sees these numbers, they'll have no choice but to accept Pinnacle's offer. What about the veteran programs? Morrison won't give those up easily. Morrison's too busy with his expansion plans to notice what's happening right under his nose. Besides, by the time he figures it out, the transition will already be complete. No more discounted rates eating into profits. No more rehabilitation programs taking up valuable space. This place has real potential once we strip away all the military sentiment." Jack's hand tightened on his duffel bag, old combat instincts, screaming to confront them immediately. But years of military discipline held him in place, forcing him to think strategically. These men weren't enemy combatants. They were worse, corporate raiders planning to destroy everything he'd built to honor his fallen brothers and sisters. "Mr. Cooper," Rebecca's voice cut through his thoughts. "Your room is ready. Would you like assistance with your luggage?" "No thanks," Jack managed, his mind still processing what he'd overheard. "Been carrying my own weight a long time." The young bellhop who appeared, Kevin, according to his name tag, moved with the distinct gait of someone who'd spent time in combat boots. Jack had made it a point to hire veterans whenever possible, knowing firsthand how hard the transition to civilian life could be. Now those jobs were at risk too. As they rode the elevator to the 4th floor, Jack studied his reflection in the polished doors. The man staring back was a stranger, unshaven, grey, touching his temples, eyes harder than they'd been even in combat. He'd chosen this disguise carefully, playing up his actual combat injuries while downplaying his success since returning home. But now he wondered if this stranger might be closer to reality than the polished hotel owner he'd become. The elevator, Doors opened to a hallway lined with historical military photographs, another personal touch Pinnacle would probably eliminate. Each image told a story of service and sacrifice, reminding guests that luxury could coexist with honor. "Your room, sir," Kevin announced, gesturing to 412. "If you need anything, just dial 0. The Veterans Social Hour starts at 1800 in the Liberty Lounge. Good way to meet others who've served." Jack tipped him generously, recognizing the subtle way the young man had identified him as a fellow veteran without making it obvious. That kind of understanding was exactly what made Victory Heights special, and exactly what these corporate vultures wouldn't understand. Alone in his room, Jack sat heavily on the bed, his prosthetic leg aching from the tension he'd been carrying. Tomorrow's board meeting suddenly made sense. The urgent notices, the last-minute changes, the unusual visitor list. Someone had orchestrated this carefully, counting on his trust in the system he'd built. They were about to learn that trust, like respect, had to be earned, and anyone threatening his mission was about to face a Marine who'd never forgotten his training. The real question was, who among his trusted circle had betrayed everything they'd built together? Jack spent his first hour in room 412 methodically, unpacking his go-bag, muscle memory from countless deployments guiding his movements. Each item had been carefully chosen to support his cover story. Well-worn clothing, a few dog-eared paperbacks, and his actual military medals, minus the Distinguished Service Cross that would have drawn too much attention. The room itself was a testament to everything Victory Heights represented. Unlike standard hotel art, the walls displayed photographs of local veterans who'd successfully transitioned to civilian life. The desk held information about job programs and VA resources, disguised within elegant leather folders. Even the room service menu included dishes created by graduates of their culinary training program. 10 years ago, this same room had been part of the struggling Mountain View Lodge. Jack remembered the day he'd first toured it, fresh out of Walter Reed Medical Center, his prosthetic leg still raw against his skin. The real estate agent had seen only the peeling paint and outdated fixtures. Jack had seen something else, a chance to fulfill a promise made in a dusty field hospital in Kandahar. "If we make it home," James Cooper had said, his voice weak but determined, "we need to do something that matters." Those were his last words before the medevac arrived. Only Jack had made it home. A knock at the door interrupted his memories. "Room service." Jack checked his watch. He hadn't ordered anything. Cautiously, he opened the door to find an elderly man in a hotel uniform pushing a cart with covered plates. "Complimentary dinner for our veteran guests," the man explained, his own Vietnam. A veteran pin prominently displayed. "I'm George, been here since before Mr. Morrison bought the place. Back then, I was just the maintenance guy. Now they call me the guest experience coordinator, but I still fix things when needed." Jack remembered. Hiring George remembered the man's insistence that he could do more than fix leaky faucets. He'd been right. George had become the heart of Victory Heights, an unofficial mentor to younger veterans struggling with their transitions. "Come in, George," Jack said, maintaining his cover, but watching the older man carefully. "You've been here a while. What do you think of the changes lately?" George wheeled the cart inside, his movements deliberate. "Changes are like weather in the mountains. Some blow over quick, others turn into storms." He lifted the silver covers, revealing a plate of pot roast, Chef Mike's specialty. "He learned to cook in the army, got his culinary degree through our program, at least until they cut the funding last month." Jack's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "They cut the culinary program?" "Not officially," George sighed, straightening. "Utensils that didn't need straightening, just temporarily suspended for review. Same thing happened to the physical therapy partnership and the family counseling sessions. All our best programs getting picked apart by folks who've never served a day in uniform. The pot roast turned to ash in Jack's mouth. He'd been so focused on expansion plans, on opening new properties, that he'd missed the dismantling of Victory Heights' core mission. But who had the authority to suspend these programs without his approval? "Between you and me," George continued, his voice dropping, "something's not right. Last week, some suits from Pinnacle Resorts toured the property, real interested in our occupancy rates, not so much in our veteran employment statistics. Day after that, Ms. Harrison from accounting was crying in the break room, said something about cooking the books, and couldn't live with herself." Sarah Harrison. Jack had promoted her to head of accounting 2 years ago on his CFO's recommendation. The same CFO who had pushed hard for the partnership with Pinnacle Resorts. "Must be hard," Jack said carefully, watching things change. George's weathered face hardened. "My son didn't die in Fallujah so veterans could be treated like second-class citizens in a place built for them. Mr. Morrison's a good man, served himself, understands what this place means. But good men can be betrayed if they trust the wrong people." After George left, Jack pulled out his laptop, accessing the hotel's financial systems through a back door he'd created for emergencies. The numbers confirmed his worst fears. Programs weren't just being cut, their budgets had been systematically drained, the funds diverted through a maze of accounting tricks. Someone with intimate knowledge of Victory Heights operations was deliberately weakening its foundations. On his phone, headlines from the past year painted a pattern. Pinnacle Resorts acquires struggling veterans retreat in Colorado. Historic military hotel rebranded as luxury resort. Veteran programs eliminated in corporate takeover. A text message flashed on his screen. "Board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Unanimous vote required for new management contract. Strong recommendation." For approval, Michael Chen, his CFO and supposed friend, the man who'd helped him secure the initial loan for Victory Heights, the man who now seemed suspiciously eager to hand over their legacy to corporate raiders. Jack's prosthetic leg caught the evening light, the titanium and carbon fiber, a permanent reminder of everything he'd sacrificed for his country. He'd lost his leg, saving his unit from an ambush. He'd be damned if he'd lose Victory Heights to an ambush from within. Tomorrow's board meeting wasn't just about property and profits. It was about keeping a promise made to James Cooper, to George's son, to every veteran who'd found hope within these walls. The enemy might wear suits instead of combat gear, but the mission remained the same: protect what matters, no matter the cost. The Liberty Lounge buzzed with activity as Jack made his way through the evening crowd. Once the hotel's formal dining room, he'd transformed it into a comfortable space where veterans could gather, swapping stories over coffee or seeking quiet companionship. Tonight, though, something felt different. The usual warmth had been replaced by an undercurrent of tension. "They're cutting the PTSD support group meetings," a young woman in an army jacket was saying to her companion. "Said the space is needed for corporate functions instead." Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted her coffee cup, a telltale sign Jack recognized from his own post-deployment struggles. "First the job placement program, now this," her friend replied, absently rubbing his prosthetic arm. "My brother was planning to come here for rehab next month. Now they're saying that program's under review, too." Jack settled into a corner booth, ordering coffee to maintain his cover while his mind raced. The rehabilitation program had been Victory Heights' crown jewel, a partnership with local hospitals that provided luxury accommodation for veterans undergoing long-term treatment. He'd started it after remembering his own lonely months of physical therapy, learning to walk, again in sterile hospital corridors. "Evening, sir," a voice interrupted his thoughts. "Mind if I join you?" Jack looked up to find an older man in a pressed security uniform. The name tag read, Rodriguez, Head of Security. Marcus Rodriguez, another name Jack knew from personnel files, 20 years Marine Corps, hired 5 years ago. Free country, Jack replied, gesturing to the empty seat. James Cooper. Rodriguez's eyes flickered with professional assessment as he sat down. Notice you're favoring your right leg. Kandahar or Helmand? Kandahar, Jack answered truthfully. 2013. Tough year, Rodriguez nodded. Lost my nephew there. He paused, seeming to weigh his next words carefully. You looking for work, Mr. Cooper? We might have some security positions opening up soon. Might? Rodriguez leaned forward, lowering his voice. Between us, most of the security team's getting replaced next month. Some company called Pinnacle Professional Services taking over, bringing in their own people, cutting our hours, changing protocols. Jack's coffee turned bitter in his mouth. Pinnacle Professional Services, another subsidiary of Pinnacle Resorts. They were already moving pieces into place. What about the veteran preference policy? Jack asked, knowing Victory Heights had always prioritized hiring former service members. Policy changed last week. Real quiet-like. No announcement, just new guidelines in the HR system. Rodriguez's face hardened. 20 years in the Corps taught me to smell an ambush. Something's coming, and it ain't good. As if to emphasize his point, the Liberty Lounge's evening music, usually a mix of service songs and classic rock, switched to generic hotel lobby jazz. Small changes, adding up to something bigger. After Rodriguez left, Jack made his way to the hotel's business center. At this hour, it was deserted except for a young woman at the front desk, deeply focused on her phone. Her desk plate read, Emily Watson, Business Services Manager. Excuse me, Jack approached, maintaining his cover story. I'm trying to print some VA paperwork, but I'm having trouble with the system. Oh, we actually discontinued free printing for veterans last week, Emily replied apologetically. New policy from management, but... She glanced around conspiratorially. If you email me your documents, I can print them under my staff account. Jack recognized the quiet rebellion in her offer, small acts of resistance against changes that went against Victory Heights' mission. Thanks, but what I really need is some information about the hotel's veteran programs. I'm considering a longer stay for rehabilitation. Emily's face fell. Oh, you might want to wait on that. Most of those programs are... She trailed off, then seemed to make a decision. Look, I probably shouldn't say anything, but there's a big management meeting tomorrow. Rumors are flying that Pinnacle Resorts is taking over. They've done this before. Buy hotels catering to veterans, strip them down, flip them into luxury properties. She pulled up a news article on her computer, turning the screen so Jack could see. Blue Harbor Lodge in Colorado. It was like Victory Heights, veteran-focused, family-owned. Pinnacle bought it, promised to maintain all the veteran programs. 6 months later, everything was gone. Now it's just another overpriced resort. Jack remembered Blue Harbor. He'd visited last year, looking to possibly partner with them. The owner had refused to meet, sending only a terse email about respecting confidentiality agreements. The worst part, Emily continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. Someone's been changing our financial records. I handle the business, center billing, and the numbers aren't adding up. It's like they're trying to make the veteran programs look unprofitable. Back in his room, Jack connected to the hotel's network through an encrypted laptop. Years of military intelligence work had taught him to prepare for every contingency. Within minutes, he'd accessed the modified financial records Emily had mentioned. The manipulation was clever, but clear to someone who knew where to look. Revenue from veteran programs was being underreported, while costs were inflated. Someone was building a case that Victory Heights' mission was financially unsustainable. A notification popped up on his screen. Tomorrow's board meeting agenda had been updated. The only item now listed was vote on management transition agreement. Next to it, a note, presentation by Michael Chen, CFO, and special guest, Richard Sterling, CEO of Pinnacle Resorts. Jack's artificial leg ached with phantom pain, a reminder of the last time he'd ignored his instincts about an ambush. Tomorrow's meeting wasn't just about hotel management, it was about the soul of everything he'd built, and like any good Marine, he needed to gather intelligence before engaging the enemy. The night ahead would be long, but he'd operated on less sleep in worse conditions. Someone was about to learn that veterans don't abandon their posts or their promises without a fight. Sleep eluded Jack as the first hints of dawn crept through his window. He'd spent most of the night analyzing financial records, each discovery adding another piece to a disturbing puzzle. At 500, following ingrained military habit, he headed to the hotel's fitness center. Early morning workouts had helped him cope after losing his leg, and now they helped him think. The gym was empty, except for a lone figure on a treadmill. Sarah Harrison from accounting, her face drawn with worry as she stared blankly at the wall. Jack chose an elliptical machine nearby, adjusting his prosthetic leg carefully. The rhythmic motion was soothing, familiar. "Can't sleep either?" Sarah asked, not looking away from the wall. "Bad memories," Jack replied truthfully. "Sometimes they're louder at night." Sarah's pace slowed. "My brother was like that after Fallujah. That's why I wanted to work here, you know? Thought I was helping veterans. Instead..." She stopped abruptly, wiping her eyes. "Instead what?" "Nothing. I've already said too much." She increased her speed, but her next words carried clearly. "Just, if you're planning to stay here, long term, don't. This place won't be the same after today." Jack watched her hurried departure, noting how she clutched her laptop bag like a shield. The sun was fully up when he returned to his room, but a message on his phone drove away any thoughts of rest. Emergency pre-board meeting breakfast. Roosevelt Suite, 7 a.m., mandatory for all department heads. The Roosevelt Suite occupied the entire top floor, its panoramic windows offering views of the surrounding mountains. Jack had hosted countless veteran events here, turning the luxury space into a symbol of how far they'd all come from battlefield hospitals and rehabilitation wards. Now, choosing a position near the breakfast buffet that afforded a clear view of the room, he watched the gathering storm. Michael Chen, his CFO, stood near the windows in an immaculate suit, speaking intently with a silver-haired man Jack recognized from financial magazines, Richard Sterling, CEO of Pinnacle Resorts. Their body language suggested familiarity, not a first meeting. "The numbers are irrefutable," Sterling was saying, gesturing at a tablet. "These veteran programs are bleeding money. The board will see that maintaining them is corporate suicide." "Jack's not going to give up easily," Michael replied, his voice carrying an edge of guilt. "He believes in this place." "That's why we needed someone on the inside," Sterling smiled coldly. "Someone he trusts completely. The board votes how you tell them to vote, and by the time Morrison figures it out, the deal will be done. Everyone wins." "Except the veterans," Michael muttered. "They'll find other places. Business is business. Besides, your commission on this deal should ease any moral concerns." The breakfast crowd grew, department heads arriving in groups. Jack noticed the divisions immediately. Those who knew what was coming looked nervous, while others chatted casually, unaware of the impending betrayal. "Attention, everyone," Michael called out, tapping a spoon against his water glass. "Thank you for coming early. As you know, we have an important board meeting today. Mr. Sterling from Pinnacle Resorts is here to answer any questions about the transition." "What transition?" Gloria Martinez, the events coordinator, demanded. "This is the first we're hearing about it." Pinnacle Resorts is proposing a management partnership. Sterling stepped forward smoothly. We've had great success modernizing properties like Victory Heights, making them more competitive in today's market. You mean like Blue Harbor Lodge? Rodriguez, the security chief, stood up. My cousin worked there. Said you gutted every veteran program within months. Change is necessary for growth, Sterling replied dismissively. The numbers don't lie. These charitable programs are unsustainable. Jack's hand tightened on his coffee cup as murmurs of protest rose from the crowd. He watched Sarah Harrison slip quietly from the room, tears in her eyes. A moment later, his phone buzzed with an anonymous email containing dozens of spreadsheets and internal Pinnacle documents. The evidence was devastating. Pinnacle had systematically targeted veteran-focused hotels across the country, using inside contacts to manipulate financial records before hostile takeovers. Victory Heights was just the latest target, and Michael Chen, his trusted friend and CFO, had been their inside man for months. The board meeting is at 9, Michael was saying. Mr. Morrison is unavailable, but as CFO, I have proxy authority. Once the vote is complete, Pinnacle will begin implementing changes immediately. And the veteran programs, Gloria pressed, will be evaluated based on profitability, Sterling said smoothly. Those that meet our corporate standards may continue, in some form. Jack had heard enough. Slipping out of the suite, he headed straight for his room. The enemy had revealed their strategy, and now it was time to mount a counter-offensive. He had less than 2 hours to save everything he'd built. Everything he'd promised his fallen brothers would never be forgotten. His phone buzzed again. Another anonymous email, this time with a single line. Storage room B, basement level, come alone, bringing proof. The sender's address belonged to Sarah Harrison. In combat, Jack had learned to trust his instincts about traps. This felt different. Not an ambush, but a chance to gather crucial intelligence before the final battle. As he headed for the basement, his prosthetic leg caught the morning light, reminding him that some fights were worth any cost. The war for Victory Heights' soul was about to begin, and this time the enemy wouldn't know what hit them until it was too late. The basement corridor hummed with the sound of industrial washers as Jack made his way to Storage Room B. Years of military training had taught him to note every detail. The security camera with its blinking red light, the maintenance worker who nodded as he passed, the emergency exit sign casting a green glow on the polished floor. Storage Room B had been his idea originally, a place to keep memorabilia donated by veteran guests. Display cases filled with medals, uniforms, and photographs lined the walls, each item telling a story of service and sacrifice. Now, among these testaments to valor, he was about to uncover a different kind of war story. Sarah Harrison was already there, her accounting ledgers spread across an old desk. Her hands shook as she sorted through papers, but her voice was steady. I should have come forward sooner, Mr. Morrison. Jack's cover was blown. How long have you known? Since you arrived. My brother was a scout sniper, taught me to notice details. The way you favor your right leg matches your official photos, and you have the same habit of checking sightlines when you enter a room. She managed a weak smile. Plus, you still wear your Command Combat Diver watch, not exactly standard issue for someone claiming to be a regular infantry vet. Jack glanced at his watch, a rookie mistake he should have caught. Tell me what, you found Sarah? It started 6 months ago. Michael asked me to create separate books for the veteran programs, claiming it was for better tracking. But the numbers he wanted me to report didn't match reality. She pulled out a thick folder. These are the real financials. Our veteran programs aren't just sustainable, they're profitable. The rehabilitation partnership alone brings in significant revenue from insurance companies and the VA. Jack examined the documents. The manipulation was worse than he'd imagined. Not only had program costs been inflated, but entire revenue streams had been hidden. Why didn't you report this earlier? Michael had leverage. My brother's medical bills from his last surgery. Michael arranged for Victory Heights to cover them off the books. Said he'd make sure the money was traced back to me if I didn't cooperate. Her voice cracked. I was weak. But watching them plan to destroy everything this place stands for, I couldn't live with myself. A noise in the corridor made them both freeze, combat instincts dying hard. But it was only Rodriguez, the security chief, his face grim, as he closed the door behind him. "Ma'am?" He nodded to Sarah, then turned to Jack. "Sir, thought I might find you here. We need to talk about the security footage from Michael's office." "You knew who I was too?" "Since you checked in, 20 years in Force Recon teaches you to spot another operator." Rodriguez pulled out a tablet. "Been keeping my own records since Pinnacle's first visit. 2 weeks ago, my team installed additional cameras without logging. Them in the official system. You need to see this." The footage showed Michael in late-night meetings, shredding documents, making furtive phone calls. But it was the conversation from 3 days ago that caught Jack's attention. Michael was speaking with Sterling, their voices clear through the hidden microphone. "Once we acquire Victory Heights, we'll need to move fast," Sterling was saying. "The veteran angle is bad for luxury branding. I want all military elements removed within 30 days. Anyone who objects will be terminated with standard severance." "What about Jack's ownership shares?" Michael asked. "The board vote will dilute them to almost nothing. He can keep his tiny percentage as a reminder of what happens when you put sentiment above business." Sterling laughed. "Maybe he can frame the worthless shares next to his medals." Jack's prosthetic leg ached with phantom pain as anger coursed through him. He'd earned those medals watching good people die, making promises he'd sworn to keep. "They're not just erasing programs," he said quietly. "They're erasing sacrifices." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Got more, sir. Pinnacle's done this before. 13 properties in 3 years. They find hotels with a community mission, infiltrate the management, then gut everything that made them special. But they slipped up here." He pulled up another file. "Their transition team includes 3 people involved in insurance fraud at Blue Harbor Lodge. Got a friend in the FBI's white-collar division who's very interested." Sarah's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard. "The shell companies they're using to hide the money. I can trace them, but we need access to Michael's private server. He keeps everything there, including recordings of board meetings where he deliberately misled members about the veteran program's performance." "How long until the board meeting?" Rodriguez asked. Jack checked his watch, the one that had given him away. 90 minutes. We're outgunned, outnumbered, and running out of time." A familiar scenario for any Marine. "Not outgunned," Rodriguez smiled. "Got some allies upstairs. Gloria's rallying department heads who oppose the takeover. Emily from Business Services has been documenting every policy change. Even George from Maintenance has dirt on Pinnacle. Turns out his cousin's a real estate reporter." Jack studied the evidence spread before them. Financial records, security footage, insider testimony. A battle plan was forming, but he needed one more piece of intelligence. "Sarah, can you access the final boardroom presentation? The one Michael's planning to use to convince the board?" She nodded. "Already did. It's worse than we thought. They've prepared documents showing the hotel near bankruptcy, with veteran programs as the main cause. Once the board sees those cooked books—" "They won't," Jack interrupted. "Because we're going to show them the truth. All of it." He turned to Rodriguez. "Get your FBI contact on standby." Sarah prepared 2 sets of books, the real ones and Michael's versions. "I need irrefutable proof of manipulation." "What's the play, sir?" Rodriguez asked, familiar with the tone of a commander forming strategy. "We're going to let them walk into their own ambush. Sometimes the best defense is letting the enemy think they've already won." Jack's voice hardened. "They want to make an example of Victory Heights. Fine, but they're about to learn why you don't underestimate veterans who are fighting for home." Time was running short before the board meeting, but Jack knew from combat experience that rushing reconnaissance could be fatal. With Sarah and Rodriguez coordinating their evidence, he needed to understand the full scope of what they were facing. The Liberty Lounge offered the perfect observation post. "Coffee black," he ordered, choosing a seat that gave him clear sightlines to both entrances. The morning crowd was building, a mix of veteran guests and business travelers that highlighted exactly what made Victory Heights unique. Lisa Chen, the rehabilitation program coordinator, sat 2 tables away with a group of recent amputees. Jack had hired her 3 years ago, impressed by her combination of physical therapy expertise and genuine compassion. Now he watched as she tried to maintain a brave face while explaining changes to their program. "The pool therapy sessions are still on for now," she was saying, her forced smile not quite reaching her eyes. "But the extended stay coverage has been modified. We're working on alternatives." One of her clients, a young Marine missing both legs, slumped in his wheelchair. "My VA coverage was counting on the full 8-week program. How am I supposed to complete rehab now?" Jack's own prosthetic leg seemed heavier as he remembered his rehabilitation journey. The standard hospital programs were good, but it was the extra time, the personalized attention, that had made the difference between surviving and truly recovering. A commotion near the entrance drew his attention. Richard Sterling was giving an impromptu tour to 2 men in expensive suits, their visitor badges identifying them as board members. "This space has so much potential," Sterling was saying, his voice carrying clearly. "Imagine replacing these military photos with modern art. The veteran focus limits our clientele. Luxury travelers want elegance, not constant reminders of war." "What about the current guests?" one board member asked, gesturing toward Lisa's group. "We'll honor existing reservations, of course, but the new pricing structure will naturally adjust our demographic." Sterling's smile was predatory. "Our market research shows high-end travelers will pay triple current rates for this location." Jack's phone buzzed, a message from Sarah. "Found something big. Medical wing renovation. Records don't match city permits. Someone pocketed over $2 million in construction funds." Before Jack could respond, Emily from Business Services slid into the seat across from him, her face pale. Mr. Cooper, sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this." She placed a tablet on the table, angled so only he could view the screen. The document displayed was a draft press release dated for tomorrow. Pinnacle Resorts announces acquisition of Victory Heights Hotel, historic property to be rebranded as Alpine Luxury Resort. "It was in the printer queue," Emily whispered. "They're not just planning a management change, they're announcing a complete takeover. There's more." She swiped to another document. "Staff termination lists already prepared. Anyone involved with veteran programs is marked for immediate dismissal." Jack studied the list, his jaw tightening. Lisa Chen, George from maintenance, Rodriguez and his entire security team, even the kitchen staff who'd been through their culinary program, all marked for replacement. "They're not just dismantling programs," he said quietly. "They're erasing every person who understands what this place really means." The sound of helicopters drew his attention to the windows. 2 sleek corporate choppers were landing on the hotel's helipad, unusual since they normally reserved that for medical evacuations and military ceremonies. "More board members arriving," Emily explained. Mr. Chen ordered champagne and caviar for their pre-meeting breakfast. Meanwhile, they cut the budget for the PTSD support group's coffee service. Jack's phone buzzed again. Rodriguez this time. Sterling's team is moving equipment into the executive boardroom, setting up some kind of multimedia presentation. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just a hostile takeover, it was a carefully orchestrated ambush. They'd chosen today specifically the anniversary of Victory Heights' grand opening, when Jack would normally be giving his annual speech to veteran guests. His absence wouldn't raise suspicions until it was too late. A young man in dress blues entered the lounge, his silver star prominent on his chest. Jack recognized him from the rehabilitation program, Captain James Wright, recovering from injuries sustained in a rescue operation. The young officer made his way to Lisa's table. "Ma'am," he addressed her formally, "is it true? Are they shutting down the program?" Lisa's professional composure cracked. "I don't know, sir. They won't tell us anything definitive, but—" She gestured helplessly at the paperwork before her. "This place saved my life," Wright said quietly. "Not just the physical therapy. Being here surrounded by others who understand. It gave me hope again. What happens to the next guy who needs that hope?" Jack had heard enough. He pulled out his phone, sending rapid messages to Sarah and Rodriguez. "Change of plans. Meeting in storage room B in 15 minutes. Bring everything we've got." As he stood to leave, he caught sight of Michael Chen entering the lounge, walking straight to Sterling's group. The CFO's face showed no trace of guilt as he joined their laughter. No indication that he was about to betray hundreds of veterans who had trusted this place to help them rebuild their lives. Jack's combat training had taught him to identify the key terrain in any battle. Today, that terrain wasn't the boardroom or the financial records. It was the very soul of Victory Heights. And like any good Marine, he intended to take and hold that ground, no matter the cost. The next hour would determine whether Victory Heights remained a beacon of hope for veterans or became just another luxury playground for the wealthy. The enemy had shown their hand. Now it was time to show them why you never bet against someone fighting for home. Storage Room B had transformed into an impromptu command center, with Sarah and Rodriguez arranging evidence on the old desk when Jack arrived. But it was the third person in the room that made him stop short. Catherine Morrison, his younger sister and Victory Heights' original legal counsel, who had left the hotel 2 years ago after a heated disagreement with Michael Chen. "Hello, big brother," Catherine said, her voice carrying the same steel he remembered from countless courtroom battles. "Looks like I was right about Michael after all." "How did you—" "Sarah called me last night. She's been feeding me information. For months, trying to build a case." Catherine gestured to the stacks of documents before her. "You're not the only one who made promises to James Cooper." The mention of his fallen friend hit Jack like physical blow. Catherine had been the one to help draft Victory Heights' founding documents, insisting on ironclad protections for its veteran-focused mission. He should have listened when she'd first raised concerns about Michael's push for modernization. "What do we have?" Jack asked, pushing aside regret in favor of action. Catherine's smile was sharp. "More than they expect. While I've been away, I've been tracking Pinnacle's takeovers across the country, built a network of former employees, displaced veterans, even some investigative journalists. This isn't just about Victory Heights. It's a systematic campaign to erase veteran-focused properties from the luxury hotel market." She spread out a series of photographs and documents. Blue Harbor Lodge was just the beginning. 13 properties in 3 years, each following the same pattern. They find hotels with a community mission, especially those serving veterans. Insert their people into management positions, manipulate the books to show losses, then swoop in with a rescue offer that turns into a complete takeover. But why target veteran properties specifically? Rodriguez asked. Location, 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 Catherine replied. Most veteran-focused hotels were established in prime areas, mountains, beachfront, historic districts. The founders, many of them veterans themselves, chose places where nature itself could aid in healing. Pinnacle sees that value, but not for healing. They want to convert these sanctuaries into playground resorts for the ultra-wealthy. Sarah pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. The numbers are staggering. Once they convert a property, room rates increase by 400% on average. All veteran programs are eliminated within 6 months. Employee turnover reaches nearly 100% within the first year. But that's not all, Catherine continued. I've uncovered evidence of securities fraud, tax evasion, and violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. They're not just destroying these places. They're breaking multiple federal laws in the process. Jack studied his sister's face, seeing the same determination that had driven her through law school while helping him recover from his injuries. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Would you have believed me? Catherine's voice softened. You trusted Michael, Jack. We all did. I needed ironclad proof before challenging that trust. But now, she pulled out a final document. Now we have something they don't expect. It was Victory Heights' original founding document, with a clause Catherine had insisted on including. In the event of any proposed change to the hotel's veteran-focused mission, a unanimous vote of all original shareholders is required. Michael's been hiding this from Pinnacle, Catherine explained. Their takeover plan assumes a simple board majority is sufficient, but you still hold 10% of the original shares, Jack, and I never sold my 5% either. Jack's mind raced with tactical possibilities. The board meeting is a trap, Rodriguez interjected, but maybe we can turn it into our own ambush. Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard. I've got access to their presentation. They're planning to show the board manipulated financial projections, then move straight to a vote. They don't expect any opposition. More importantly, Catherine added, they don't know we have this. She held up a USB drive. Every email, every document, every piece of evidence showing their systematic destruction of veteran properties, plus testimony from former employees willing to go on record. We've got 30 minutes until the meeting. Rodriguez checked his watch. How do you want to play this, sir? Jack looked around the room at his unlikely coalition. His legal eagle sister, a whistleblower accountant, and a security chief who'd never stopped being a Marine. In combat, the best strategy often came from using the enemy's expectations against them. Catherine, how long would it take to get your contacts on video conference? 5 minutes. I've had them on standby since Sarah called. Rodriguez, can you secure the boardroom's AV system? Already done, sir. We can override their presentation at any time. Sarah, those real financial records, ready to display, showing actual profitability of every veteran program. Jack felt the familiar clarity that came with combat planning. They think they're walking into a simple board meeting. Instead, they're going to face every person they've wronged, every law they've broken, and every lie they've told. It's not just about saving Victory Heights anymore, Catherine said quietly. This is about stopping them from destroying any more veteran havens. Jack touched his prosthetic leg, remembering the promises made in that field hospital in Kandahar. James Cooper had dreamed of creating a place where wounded warriors could heal with dignity. Now his dream was under attack from people who saw only profit margins where they should see human potential. All right, Jack said, his voice carrying the command presence that had once led Marines in combat. Let's show these corporate raiders what happens when they target the wrong veterans. The next 30 minutes would determine not just Victory Heights' fate, but the future of veteran-focused properties across the country. It was time to remind everyone that some missions don't end when you leave the service. they just find new battlefields. With 25 minutes until the board meeting, Victory Heights' basement corridor buzzed with controlled chaos. Catherine had transformed a neighboring storage room into a makeshift legal office, coordinating with contacts across the country via her laptop. The decisive evidence, however, still eluded them. There has to be a direct link between Michael and Pinnacle before the takeover talks, Jack insisted, reviewing security footage on Rodriguez's tablet. Nobody betrays their friends without prior motivation. Sarah's voice cut through the tension. Wait, look at this. She pulled up a series of bank records on her screen. 3 months ago, a company called Alpine Ventures made a series of deposits into offshore accounts. The amounts match exactly with funds missing from our renovation budgets. Alpine Ventures. Catherine looked up from her laptop. That's one of Pinnacle's shell companies. They used it in the Blue Harbor Lodge takeover. Jack leaned closer to Sarah's screen. Can you trace where those renovation funds were supposed to go? The Veterans Physical Therapy Wing, Sarah replied, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The plans called for state-of-the-art equipment, but what was installed? She pulled up procurement records. They bought refurbished units at a quarter of the budgeted cost. The difference vanished into Alpine's accounts. That's why the equipment keeps breaking down, Rodriguez added. Lisa from Rehab files maintenance requests weekly, but they're all marked under review in the system. A knock at the door made everyone freeze. Rodriguez moved smoothly into position, years of combat training evident in his stance. But it was Emily from Business Services, clutching a thick folder. Mr. Morrison, she said, slightly out of breath. You need to see this. I've been managing the communication systems since they outsourced IT. These are recordings of every call made from Michael's office in the past 6 months. Catherine practically pounced on the folder. Call logs could establish timeline and intent. Emily, you're a lifesaver. There's more, Emily continued. Remember that consultant who evaluated our veteran programs last month? He wasn't a consultant. He's Pinnacle's head of acquisitions. I found his real business card in the copy machine. Jack's mind flashed to that evaluation. He'd been suspicious of the consultant's dismissive attitude toward their PTSD support programs, but Michael had vouched for him personally. Got something? Catherine announced, holding up a printed transcript. Call between Michael and Sterling 4 months ago. They're discussing how to gradually decrease veteran program funding without attracting attention. Sterling calls it strategic resource reallocation. That matches the pattern, Sarah added, pulling up a spreadsheet. Every cut was small enough to seem reasonable in isolation, but together. She gestured at a graph showing the systematic defunding of veteran services. Rodriguez's phone buzzed. Update from my FBI contact. They're very interested in the Alpine Ventures angle. Apparently, similar shell companies appear in 3 other hotel takeovers. They've been building a case. Jack's artificial leg ached as he paced the room, a habit from his Marine days when planning complex operations. We need more than financial crimes. This is about betraying people who risked everything for their country. As if on cue, George from maintenance appeared in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but you all need to see this. He led them to a small room filled with filing cabinets. Been keeping my own records since things started changing. Every veteran we've had to turn away due to program cuts. Every family that couldn't afford the new rates. Every employee let go for questioning changes. The files told a devastating story. A double amputee forced to cut his rehabilitation short because his VA benefits no longer covered the full stay. A PTSD support group displaced from their regular meeting space for a corporate wine tasting. Gold Star families who could no longer afford the special rates Victory Heights had always offered them. This isn't just business, George said quietly. This is personal. Each of these papers represents someone who came here looking for hope and found a locked door instead. Catherine was already photographing the files. Human impact evidence. Shows pattern of discrimination against protected classes. The ADA violations alone. 10 minutes until the board meeting, Rodriguez warned, checking his watch. Jack surveyed the evidence they'd gathered. Financial records, call logs, employee testimonies, documentation of systematic program dismantling. But something was still missing. Michael's private server, he said suddenly, the one Sarah mentioned. That's where he'd keep anything truly damaging. Already tried, Sarah replied. It's encrypted. Would take days to crack. A slow smile spread across Catherine's face. Unless we have his password. She held up a photo from the call logs. Look at his desk calendar in the background. Same date every year, 11/23. November 23rd, Jack breathed. The day we opened Victory Heights. Sarah's fingers danced across her keyboard. I'm in, oh my God. Her screen filled with documents. Full correspondence with Pinnacle going back a year. Draft press releases announcing program cancellations. Lists of properties they're targeting next. Even contingency plans in case veterans protest the changes. Download everything, Catherine ordered. We've got 7 minutes to organize this into a presentation that will stop them dead in their tracks. As his team worked frantically to prepare their counterattack, Jack remembered something his commanding officer had said before their last mission in Afghanistan. The best weapon against darkness is bringing everything into the light. In minutes, they would walk into that boardroom and expose every shadow, every lie, every betrayal. Pinnacle and Michael thought they were facing a simple business transaction. Instead, they were about to confront the full power of truth and the unshakable loyalty of people fighting for something bigger than profit margins. With 5 minutes until the board meeting, Jack made one final stop, the Wall of Honor near the lobby. The massive display of photographs told Victory Heights' true story, not through profit margins or occupancy rates, but through lives transformed. Each image captured a moment of triumph. A veteran taking their first steps with a prosthetic leg, a former soldier graduating from their culinary program, families reuniting after long rehabilitation stays. In the center hung a photograph that few knew the significance of. James Cooper standing proudly beside his Marine unit, taken just days before the IED attack that had changed everything. His smile held no hint of what was to come, no suggestion that he would soon inspire the creation of a place where wounded warriors could heal with dignity. I knew him, a voice said behind Jack. He turned to find Lisa Chen, the rehabilitation coordinator, studying the same photo. James Cooper was my first patient at Walter Reed. The day he died, he made me promise to never stop fighting for our wounded veterans. She smiled sadly. That's why I came to work here, because Victory Heights keeps that promise every day. And now, Jack asked, maintaining his cover but needing to hear her perspective. Now? Lisa's voice hardened. Now, I watched them dismantle everything we built, piece by piece. Last week they cancelled our adaptive sports program. Yesterday they postponed the family counseling sessions. Today, she gestured to a group of veterans in the lobby, their faces showing varying degrees of concern. Today I had to tell my patients that their extended rehabilitation stays might not be covered anymore. Among the group, Jack recognized Captain Wright, the Silver Star recipient. The young officer was helping another veteran with his wheelchair, demonstrating the kind of mutual support that made Victory Heights special. You know what they're planning, don't you? Lisa continued. These corporate types, they see our programs as inefficient use of space. They don't understand that healing takes time, that recovery isn't just about physical therapy. It's about being somewhere that understands what you've been through. Jack's prosthetic leg seemed to throb in agreement. He remembered his own recovery, the dark days when pain and despair had nearly overwhelmed him. It was the community of other veterans that had pulled him through, showing him a path forward. "Time for my group session," Lisa sighed, checking her watch. "What's left of it, anyway? They cut our meeting time in half, said the space was needed for executive functions, as if healing wounded warriors isn't the most important function we could serve." As she walked away, Jack noticed more details he'd missed earlier. The Wall of Honor had already begun to change. Several photographs had been removed, replaced with generic hotel promotional images. The display case containing military medals had been pushed into a corner, partially hidden behind a new sign advertising luxury spa packages. His phone buzzed, a message from Catherine. "Board members arriving. Sterling and Michael already in the room. It's now or never." But before he could move, he heard a commotion near the front desk. An elderly couple was arguing with Rebecca, the desk clerk. "What do you mean our Gold Star family rate isn't available?" the woman was saying, her voice trembling. "We've been coming here every year since our son." She clutched a folded flag to her chest, unable to finish the sentence. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Henderson," Rebecca replied, clearly distressed. "The new management guidelines specifically prohibit special rates, even for families of fallen soldiers. I wish—" "Hey, their room's covered," Captain Wright interrupted, approaching the desk with purpose. He pulled out his credit card. "Charge it to me at full rate." "Sir, you can't," Rebecca began. "Actually, he can," came another voice. George from maintenance stepped forward, joined by several other staff members. "And if he doesn't, I will. We take care of our own here." Jack watched as more veterans and staff gathered around the Hendersons, each offering to help. This was the true measure of Victory Heights, not its luxury amenities or prime location, but the unbreakable bonds forged between those who understood the true cost of service. His phone buzzed again. Rodriguez this time. "All systems ready, boardroom security in position, waiting on your signal." Looking one last time at James Cooper's photograph, Jack made his decision. This wasn't just about stopping a corporate takeover. This was about protecting a sanctuary where wounded warriors could heal, where Gold Star families could find comfort, where the promises made to fallen heroes could be kept. The evidence they'd gathered would expose Pinnacle's schemes and Michael's betrayal. But the real power of Victory Heights lay in moments like this. Veterans helping veterans, staff members risking their jobs to uphold the hotel's values, a community united by something stronger than profit margins. "On my way," he texted back. "Initiate Operation Homecoming." As he headed toward the boardroom, Jack heard Captain Wright explaining to the Hendersons why Victory Heights was worth fighting for. In that moment, he knew that whatever happened in the next hour would ripple far beyond this one hotel. They weren't just defending a business, they were protecting a beacon of hope for every veteran who would ever need a place to heal, to recover, to find their way home. The executive floor of Victory Heights hummed with activity as board members filed into their designated conference room. Jack watched from the service corridor, where Rodriguez had established their impromptu command post. Through the security feeds, they could see Michael Chen arranging presentation materials, while Richard Sterling chatted smoothly with board members. "Final positions," Rodriguez reported through his earpiece. "Sarah's in the security control room. Catherine's got her legal team on standby in the business center. Emily's manning the communications hub. And our special guests, 5 former Pinnacle employees ready to testify via video conference. 3 investigative journalists with complete dossiers on their takeover patterns. Plus, that FBI agent is watching the live stream." Jack nodded, but his attention was drawn to another monitor showing the lobby. The scene with the Gold Star family had evolved into something unexpected. Word had spread about the cancelled veteran rates, and now dozens of guests and staff members were gathering, sharing similar stories of programs cut and promises broken. "Sir," Rodriguez's voice carried urgency. "Sterling's starting early. They're trying to rush the vote before all board members arrive." Through the monitor, Jack watched Sterling take his position at the head of the conference table. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming on short notice. As you know, Victory Heights faces significant financial challenges. The current business model is unsustainable." "That's our cue," Jack said. "Execute Phase 1. Sarah's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Initiating system override. Now." Sterling's carefully prepared slides suddenly vanished from the boardroom's display screens. In their place appeared the real financial records, clearly showing the systematic manipulation of program costs and revenue. "Minor technical difficulty," Michael stammered, rushing to his laptop. "If we could just—" "Actually," Jack said, stepping into the boardroom in his full undercover appearance, "those numbers are exactly what we need to discuss." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Sterling's face darkened with recognition, but before he could speak, Catherine strode in from the opposite door, carrying a stack of legal documents. "Members of the board," she announced crisply, "before we proceed, you should know that you're currently witnessing evidence of securities fraud, financial manipulation, and violation of multiple federal regulations." "This is ridiculous," Sterling blustered. "Security!" Rodriguez entered in full uniform, flanked by his team. "Yes, sir? Did you mean the security team you tried to replace with Pinnacle personnel, or the ones who've been documenting your illegal activities?" Jack moved to the center of the room, facing Michael directly. "Tell them, old friend. Tell them about Alpine Ventures, about the diverted renovation funds, about how you've been systematically destroying everything we built together." Michael's face went pale. "Jack, I can explain." "Explain what?" Jack pulled off his disguise, the fake beard, the worn jacket. "Explain how you betrayed, not just me, but every veteran who trusted this place to help them heal." The boardroom. Doors opened again as Sarah entered, pushing a cart loaded with evidence files. "Full financial records, ladies and gentlemen, including Mr. Chen's private server data, showing 18 months of collaboration with Pinnacle to artificially depress Victory Heights' value." Sterling's smooth facade cracked. "You have no authority to—" "Actually," Catherine interrupted, "as legal counsel and original shareholder, I have both authority and obligation to present evidence of corporate malfeasance. Would you like to discuss the 13 other properties Pinnacle has stripped of their veteran programs? Perhaps the pending FBI investigation into your use of shell companies?" On the boardroom screens, faces appeared, former employees from other Pinnacle takeovers ready to testify. Jack recognized the former manager of Blue Harbor Lodge among them. "This is a waste of time," Sterling snapped. "The vote has already been scheduled. The paperwork is ready. You can't stop." A commotion from the lobby feed drew everyone's attention. The gathering of veterans and staff had grown larger, their voices carrying clearly through the hotel's security system. "Victory Heights saved my life," Captain Wright was saying to the crowd. "When I came here, I couldn't walk, couldn't sleep through the night. This place, these people, they gave me back my dignity, my purpose." Others joined in, sharing their stories. A Gold Star mother speaking about finding comfort in the memorial garden. A former soldier describing how the culinary program had given him a new mission. Staff members recounting countless moments of transformation and healing. "That," Jack said quietly, commanding the board's attention, "is what you're really voting on today. Not profit margins or market share, but whether promises made to our veterans still means something." Michael stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "Jack, please. They threatened to expose everything, the early permits, the tax issues. I thought if I cooperated—" "You thought betraying everything we fought for was the answer?" Jack's voice carried the weight of command. How many veterans have been turned away because you drained our program funds? How many families can't afford to stay here anymore? Sterling's phone buzzed. His face darkened as he read the message. This meeting is adjourned. Our legal team will... Will what? Catherine asked sweetly. Explain why Pinnacle's CEO is engaging in systematic discrimination against protected veterans. Or perhaps they'd like to address the RICO implications of your acquisition pattern. The boardroom erupted into chaos as members demanded explanations, evidence was distributed, and years of deception began unraveling. Through it all, Jack watched. His former friend Michael, seeing the moment when the full weight of his betrayal finally hit home. But this was just the first skirmish. Sterling was already on his phone, likely calling in corporate reinforcements. The real battle for Victory Heights' soul was just beginning, and like any good Marine, Jack knew that initial contact with the enemy was just the start of the fight. The aftermath of the boardroom confrontation turned Victory Heights' executive floor into a war room. Jack had seen enough tactical situations to know that initial victories could be deceiving. Sterling's hasty retreat wasn't surrender. It was a strategic withdrawal to gather reinforcements. Pinnacle's legal team is mobilizing, Catherine reported, hanging up her phone. They're filing for an emergency injunction to force the board vote through, claiming we've interfered with a legitimate business transaction. Let them, Sarah interjected, not looking up from her laptop. I've found something better. Those renovation funds that disappeared into Alpine Ventures, they didn't stay there. The money was used to bribe zoning officials in 3 states where Pinnacle took over veteran properties. Rodriguez entered with a fresh security update. Sterling's holed up in the Roosevelt suite making calls. His assistant just ordered 3 copies of our employee files to be sent up. They're probably looking for dirt, anything to discredit us. Jack's military training kicked in. Assess, adapt, counterattack. They'll try to divide us. Turn the staff against management. Make this look like a personal vendetta instead of what it really is. Already happening, Emily reported through the comm system. HR just received template letters for mass terminations, citing insubordination. During a corporate transition, they're threatening everyone's severance packages. The tension in the room peaked as Michael Chen was led in by security. His usual confident demeanor had crumbled, replaced by the look of a man who'd finally realized the magnitude of his betrayal. They've got everything, Jack, Michael said, slumping into a chair. Every shortcut we took getting this place started, the creative accounting that kept us afloat that first year, even the unofficial deals with VA officials to fast-track our program approvals. The difference, Jack replied coldly, is that we bent rules to help veterans. You broke them to destroy everything those veterans built. Catherine was already processing the implications. They'll use this to paint us as corrupt from the beginning, make it look like Pinnacle is cleaning up a problematic operation rather than destroying it. A commotion from the lobby feed drew their attention. Sterling's corporate team had arrived, sleek lawyers with predatory smiles and thick briefcases. But they weren't alone. Local news vans were pulling up, tipped off about the developing situation. Sir, Rodriguez said quietly, we've got another problem. Sterling's people are spreading rumors about financial instability. Guests are starting to ask about checking out early. Corporate clients are calling to cancel events. Jack felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. This wasn't just about exposing Pinnacle's schemes anymore. They had to protect the livelihoods of hundreds of employees, the ongoing care of current guests, and the very existence of Victory Heights itself. Catherine, how long can they tie us up in legal proceedings? Months, maybe years. They've got deep pockets and a track record of drowning smaller properties in litigation until they're forced to sell. Sarah spun her laptop around, displaying a complex web of financial transactions. But they've never faced this level of evidence before. The money trail doesn't just prove fraud, it shows a pattern that could trigger federal RICO charges. We don't have months, Jack decided. Every day this drags on, they'll bleed us dry with legal fees and lost business. We need to end this now. Rodriguez's tactical experience surfaced. In combat, when the enemy has superior resources, you don't fight their battle. You make them fight yours. The media, Emily suggested through the comms. The reporters outside, they're not here for a business story. They're here because someone tipped them off about veterans being displaced. Jack's mind raced with possibilities. Behind him, the wall of honor was visible through the office windows, each photograph representing a promise that had to be kept. "Get me Captain Wright," he ordered, "and every veteran in the building willing to tell their story. Emily, find that Gold Star family from earlier. Sarah, prepare a complete timeline of program cuts and policy changes. Catherine, how fast can you get your contacts from other Pinnacle properties on video conference?" Minutes. They've been waiting for a chance to expose what happened to their hotels. Rodriguez, full security footage of Sterling's team discussing veteran program eliminations, every dismissive comment, every cruel calculation. And Michael, his former friend, looked up, hope flickering briefly. "You've got one chance to do the right thing. We need every document, every email, every conversation showing how Pinnacle really operates. Their entire playbook for destroying veteran-focused improprieties." Michael nodded slowly. "There's more. Sterling. He's not just targeting hotels. They've got a whole subsidiary focused on buying VA-adjacent properties, planning to convert them into luxury developments. They want to price veterans out of their own communities." The revelation landed like a bombshell. This wasn't just about Victory Heights anymore. It was about making a stand for veteran communities across the country. "Sir," Rodriguez interrupted, checking his tactical tablet. "Sterling's team is moving. They're calling for a press conference in 30 minutes, planning to get ahead of the story." Jack smiled grimly. Years of military service had taught him that the best defense was a bold offense. "Let them try. By the time they reach those microphones, we'll have changed the battlefield completely." The next 30 minutes would determine not just Victory Heights' fate, but the future of veteran-focused properties nationwide. It was time to remind everyone that some things were worth more than profit margins, and that old soldiers never forgot how to fight for what mattered. The next revelation hit harder than any IED. As Michael Chen began detailing his involvement with Pinnacle, each word landed like shrapnel, exposing wounds deeper than anyone had suspected. "It started 2 years ago," Michael explained, his voice hollow. "After Catherine left, Sterling approached me at a hospitality conference in Denver. He knew everything about our financial struggles, our expansion challenges, knew things only someone inside Victory Heights could have told him." Jack's blood ran cold. Someone else was feeding them information? William Barrett. Michael's words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. "Your mentor from the VA, the one who helped secure our initial funding." The name struck Jack like a physical blow. William Barrett had been more than a mentor. He'd been the first person to believe in Victory Heights, the man who'd helped navigate the maze of VA bureaucracy to establish their veteran programs. A fellow Marine who'd supposedly dedicated his retirement to helping other veterans succeed in business. "That's impossible," Jack protested, but Catherine was already pulling up records on her laptop. "No, it makes sense," she said grimly. "Look at the pattern. Every property Pinnacle targeted had VA-supported funding. They always knew exactly which regulations to exploit, which programs to cut first. They had inside knowledge of the entire veteran housing support system." Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Found it. Barrett joined Pinnacle's advisory board 18 months ago under a different name. He's been consulting on their veteran property acquisitions program." The betrayal cut deeper than Michael's. Barrett had been there when Jack was struggling through rehabilitation, had visited him at Walter Reed after the IED attack. He'd been the one to suggest turning the struggling mountain lodge into a veterans' retreat. "There's more," Michael continued, each word seeming to physically pain him. "Barrett's position at the VA. He's been helping Pinnacle identify vulnerable properties, hotels, rehabilitation centers, veteran housing developments, anywhere that relies on VA support or certification." Rodriguez, ever the tactical thinker, immediately grasped the implications. They're not just attacking individual properties, they're dismantling the entire support infrastructure. By replacing veteran-focused facilities with luxury developments, Catherine added, her legal mind assembling the pieces. They're systematically pricing veterans out of communities built to support them. Emily's voice crackled through the comm system. "Sir, Barrett just arrived. He's in the lobby, telling reporters he's here to help mediate the situation. Local news is eating it up. Decorated Marine, veteran advocate, perfect soundbites about necessary business evolution." Jack moved to the window, watching. His former mentor worked the growing media crowd. Barrett's silver hair and military bearing lent him an air of authority as he spoke with reporters. The same presence that had once inspired trust now seemed calculated, predatory. "Play the recording," Jack ordered quietly. Sarah accessed the security footage from Michael's earlier meetings. Barrett's voice filled the room. "These veteran programs are obsolete. Modern warriors don't need coddling. They need to adapt to market realities. Victory Heights is just the beginning. Once we establish the model here, we can replicate it nationwide." "He's presenting today," Michael revealed, "part of Sterling's strategy. Barrett delivers the final pitch to the board, using his veteran status to justify eliminating the programs. With his VA connections and military record, who would question his judgment?" The pieces of Pinnacle's master plan became clear. They weren't just acquiring properties, they were systematically erasing spaces where veterans could heal, rebuild and support each other. Replace them with luxury developments, high-end resorts, exclusive communities, all orchestrated by a man who had once sworn to serve his fellow veterans. "Sir," Rodriguez interrupted, his voice urgent. "Barrett's heading to the executive floor. He's got VA officials with him, claiming they need to review our program certifications immediately." Jack's prosthetic leg ached with phantom pain, remembering how Barrett had visited him during physical therapy, talking about creating places where wounded warriors could recover with dignity, all while planning to destroy those very sanctuaries. "Let them come," Jack decided, his voice carrying the steel of combat command. "It's time Barrett faced the people he's betraying." Catherine was already mobilizing their resources. "I'm calling in every veteran advocate we know, VA oversight, committees, veteran service organizations, military family support groups. Barrett's not just going to face us, he's going to face the entire community he's conspiring to displace." "Sir," Rodriguez reported, checking his tactical display, "we've got incoming. Barrett, Sterling, and their entire legal team are approaching, plus what looks like federal regulators." Jack touched the photograph of James Cooper on his desk, his friend who had died, believing in the possibility of places like Victory Heights. The same friend whose memory Barrett had invoked when convincing Jack to start this mission. "Emily, patch me into the hotel's PA system, all floors, all areas." Jack's voice hardened with purpose. It's time every guest, every employee, every veteran in this building knew exactly what we're fighting for. The next few minutes would determine not just Victory Heights' fate, but the future of veteran communities across the nation. Barrett wasn't just facing a business negotiation. He was about to confront the full weight of the broken promises and betrayed trust he'd left in his wake. Sometimes the deepest wounds came from those you trusted most. But as any combat veteran, Knew betrayal had a way of forging unlikely allies and revealing unexpected strengths. The real question was, in the coming battle, would the truth be enough to overcome years of carefully constructed deception? The executive floor of Victory Heights had become a battleground. William Barrett's arrival with his entourage of VA officials and pinnacle lawyers created an atmosphere thick with tension. Jack watched through the security feed as his former mentor approached, noting how Barrett's practiced military bearing now seemed more like a calculated performance. "Positions," Jack ordered through the comm system. "Catherine, get your legal team ready. Rodriguez, full security coverage. Sarah, prepare to broadcast everything. This ends today." The hotel's PA system crackled to life, carrying Jack's voice to every corner of the property. "Attention all guests and staff. This is Jack Morrison. In 10 minutes I'll be addressing everyone from the main lobby regarding the future of Victory Heights. What happens here today will affect veteran communities across the nation. I invite everyone to witness this moment firsthand." Barrett's team reached the executive floor just as Jack finished his announcement. The older man's face showed a flicker of surprise at finding his former protégé waiting, no longer in disguise. "Jack," Barrett greeted smoothly, as if they were still mentor and student. "I was hoping to discuss this privately before things escalate further. Like you privately discussed Victory Heights' vulnerabilities with Pinnacle," Jack's voice carried the edge of command, "or how you privately identified other veteran properties for them to target." Sterling stepped forward, all corporate. "Confidence. Mr. Morrison, you're forcing us to take a more aggressive stance. These accusations of conspiracy are fully documented," Catherine interrupted, emerging from the conference room with a stack of files, "including Mr. Barrett's hidden connections to Pinnacle's subsidiary companies. Interesting reading for the VA Ethics Committee, I'm sure." Barrett's mask of concern slipped slightly. "The veteran service model is outdated, Jack. These properties can serve a broader purpose. Change is inevitable." "Change?" The word exploded from Jack like a grenade. "You taught me that change should lift people up, not destroy their chances of recovery. You stood in my hospital room at Walter Reed, talking about creating sanctuaries for wounded warriors. Was that all a lie?" Through the lobby feed, they could see guests and staff gathering. Captain Wright was there with his therapy group. The Dynasty Gold Star family stood near the Wall of Honor. Even the kitchen staff had emerged, still in their uniforms, led by graduates of their culinary program. "The numbers don't lie," Sterling interjected. "These veteran programs show me the real." "Numbers?" Jack challenged. "Not your manipulated reports." "Sarah." The boardroom screens flickered to life, displaying 2 sets of financial data side by side. The truth was undeniable. Victory Heights veteran programs weren't just sustainable, they were pivotal to the hotel's success. 60% of our corporate clients choose us specifically because of our veteran initiatives, Jack continued. Our rehabilitation partnership brings in consistent revenue while serving those who served us. The culinary program, fully funded by grants and community support, Barrett's composed facade cracked further. "The market is changing, Jack. Luxury properties in these locations are worth nothing compared to the lives we save." Jack cut him off. "How many veterans completed suicide last year, William? How many struggled to find places that understood their needs? You used to quote those statistics to me. Now you're helping eliminate their safe havens." The elevator dinged, and George from maintenance emerged, leading a group of veterans from various eras. Jack recognized the quiet strength in their bearing. Men and women who had faced harder battles than this. "Mr. Barrett," George called out, his voice carrying decades of service. "Remember me? You approved my VA housing grant, helped me get back on my feet. Now you're trying to make sure no one else gets that chance?" Barrett's military composure finally broke. "You don't understand. Pinnacle's resources could modernize. These properties make them profitable. They already are profitable, Catherine interrupted, just not by destroying people's lives. Sarah, show them the projection models. New data filled the screens, detailed analysis showing how Victory Heights' veteran-focused model could be expanded, strengthened, made even more successful while maintaining its core mission. Sterling's phone buzzed. His face darkened as he read the message. The press is asking about Barrett's Pinnacle connections. Someone leaked the documents. Not someone. Michael stepped forward, his voice steady for the first time since this began. I did. The board needs to see who they're really dealing with. Barrett's carefully constructed world was unraveling. The VA officials with him were already backing away, their expressions shifting from professional neutrality to growing concern. You taught me something important at Walter Reed, Jack said quietly, addressing his former mentor. You said that how we treat our wounded warriors shows the true character of our nation. Remember that, William, or was that just another line in your corporate takeover script? Through the lobby feed, they could see more people arriving. Veterans from nearby communities, families of current guests, even local military support groups. The story was spreading, drawing those who understood exactly what was at stake. Last chance, Jack announced, his voice carrying the weight of command. Walk away now. End this attempt to destroy veteran havens, or face the consequences of betraying everything you once claimed to believe in. Barrett looked around the room, seeing not just the immediate confrontation, but the larger battle he was losing. His carefully crafted image as a veteran advocate was crumbling, replaced by the reality of his corporate allegiances. The moment stretched like a tripwire about to snap. In the lobby below, hundreds waited to learn whether Victory Heights would remain a sanctuary for healing or become another casualty in Pinnacle's war against veteran communities. The next few minutes would determine not just the fate of one hotel, but the future of countless veterans seeking places to rebuild their lives. The question was, would Barrett choose redemption or force a final confrontation that would expose every dark detail of his betrayal? The tension in Victory Heights' executive floor reached a breaking point as Barrett's carefully constructed facade finally shattered. His next words, however, weren't what anyone expected. It was never about the money, he said quietly, his military bearing crumbling. Not at first. I really believed we could help more veterans by modernizing these properties, making them self-sustaining. He turned to Sterling. You promised the programs would continue, just streamlined. Sterling's corporate mask slipped, revealing the predator beneath. Don't go soft now, William. Think about your retirement package, your position on the board. His position won't matter much after this, Catherine interrupted, holding up her phone. The VA Ethics Committee is on the line. They're very interested in Mr. Barrett's undisclosed connections to properties under his oversight. Jack watched his former mentor closely, remembering countless conversations about serving veterans, about creating spaces where wounded warriors could heal with dignity. You taught me that leadership means putting mission before personal gain. Was that just another lie? The lobby feed showed the gathering crowd had grown larger. News cameras captured every moment as veterans from different eras stood together, united in purpose. Captain Wright had organized current guests into an impromptu speakers panel, each sharing how Victory Heights had impacted their recovery. Sir, Rodriguez reported through the comm system, FBI agents just arrived. They're requesting access to the financial records Sarah uncovered. Barrett's face went ashen. The offshore accounts were just the beginning, Sarah confirmed, her fingers flying across her keyboard. Every property Pinnacle targeted, every veteran program eliminated, every falsified report, it's all documented. The money trail leads straight back to your private consulting firm. Sterling moved toward the door, but Rodriguez's security team blocked his path. This is illegal detention. Our lawyers will have their hands full, Catherine finished. The SEC is particularly interested in how Pinnacle used insider information from VA officials to target vulnerable properties. RICO violations tend to get their attention. Through the executive floor windows, more vehicles were arriving. TV news vans, veteran advocacy groups, even a bus carrying former residents of Blue Harbor Lodge come to share their stories of displacement. "It's over, William," Jack said quietly. "The question is, do you go down protecting Pinnacle's profits, or do you help us save what's left of your legacy?" Barrett looked around the room, seeing not just the immediate crisis, but the weight of every decision that had led here. His gaze lingered on the wall of honor, on faces of veterans who had found hope within these walls. "The files," he said finally. "Everything's in my private server. Every conversation with Sterling, every property assessment, every strategy. For eliminating veteran programs." He turned to Sterling. "You never intended to maintain any services, did you? This was always about the real estate." Sterling's practiced smile turned cold. "Business is business. Sentiment doesn't pay dividends." "Sarah," Jack ordered, "get those files. Catherine, coordinate with the FBI. Rodriguez, ensure our guests have full access to the media. It's time everyone knew exactly what's at stake." But Barrett wasn't finished. "There's more. The endgame wasn't just luxury hotels. Pinnacle's been coordinating with developers nationwide, targeting entire veteran communities, housing projects, rehabilitation centers, VA-adjacent properties. They're trying to price veterans out of areas built to support them." The revelation hit like an artillery strike. This wasn't just about Victory Heights anymore. It was about protecting veteran communities across the country from systematic displacement. "Show them," Barrett continued, his voice heavy with delayed conscience. "Show them what I helped them plan. Maybe it's not too late to stop it." As Sarah accessed Barrett's files, the full scope of Pinnacle's operation appeared on the boardroom screens. Maps showed targeted properties glowing red, each representing a veteran sanctuary at risk. Financial projections detailed the expected profits from converting these spaces into luxury developments. "My God," Catherine breathed, scanning the documents. "They're creating veteran housing deserts, entire regions where returning service members won't be able to afford to live near their support services." Jack's prosthetic leg ached as he remembered his own recovery, the importance of having a community that understood the unique challenges of rehabilitation. How many future veterans would be denied that crucial support? "Emily," he commanded through the comm system, "broadcast everything, every document, every plan, every conversation. Let the world see what corporate greed really looks like when it targets those who served." The hotel's PA system crackled to life, carrying Barrett's confession to every corner of the property. In the lobby, veterans and their families listened as the full truth emerged. Some wept. Others stood straighter, their military bearing returning. In the face of a clear threat to their community, Sterling's phone buzzed constantly now, likely corporate damage control trying to contain the spreading story. But it was too late. Social media was already lighting up with hashtags: "Jashi Save Victory Heights," "Jashi's Veterans Can't Wait," "Jashi Stand with Warriors." "Sir," Rodriguez reported, "veterans organizations from across the country are calling. They want to know how to protect their local properties from similar takeovers." Jack looked at his former mentor, seeing not the betrayer, but the Marine who had once believed in serving others. "Help us make this right, William. Turn your insider knowledge into a defense against future attacks." Barrett squared his shoulders, a flash of his old military bearing returning. "Where do we start?" The battle for Victory Heights was transforming into something larger, a nationwide stand against the corporate exploitation of veteran communities. The next few hours would determine whether this single hotel's resistance could spark a movement to protect veteran spaces across America. The question was, Would Barrett's 11th hour conversion be enough to turn the tide, or was his change of heart just another tactical retreat in Pinnacle's ongoing war against veteran sanctuaries? The next hour transformed Victory Heights, lobby into ground zero for a battle that would echo across the nation. As Barrett's revelations continued to broadcast throughout the hotel, Sterling's corporate mask finally cracked completely. "Enough of this circus," he snarled, pulling out his phone. "I'm activating our nuclear option. Either we take control now, or nobody gets anything." Jack recognized the look. He'd seen it on cornered enemies in combat. "What are you talking about? Check your debt covenants, Morrison. Pinnacle didn't just position for a takeover. We own your mortgage. One call, and I can demand immediate repayment of every loan. How long can Victory Heights survive bankruptcy proceedings?" The threat hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Catherine was already pulling up the loan documents, her face grim as she confirmed Sterling's claim. "He's right," she said quietly. "They've been buying our debt through shell companies. Multiple lenders, all controlled by Pinnacle subsidiaries. They could force us into default within hours, but before despair could take hold, an unexpected voice cut through the tension. Not if we have anything to say about it." Captain Wright wheeled forward, followed by a group of veterans of all ages and eras. "While you've been up here playing corporate games, we've been making calls of our own." Lisa Chen from Rehabilitation Services stepped forward with her tablet. "Meet our new investors, every veteran-owned business in 3 states that's been impacted by Pinnacle's predatory practices, plus military family support organizations, veteran advocacy groups, and about 1,000 individual veterans who believe in what we're doing here." Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard, bringing up a new set of financial projections. "They've pledged enough to clear our entire debt, not as loans, as investments. They want equity stakes in Victory Heights to ensure it stays true to its mission." Sterling scoffed. "You expect me to believe a bunch of small-time veterans can match Pinnacle's resources?" "No," came a new voice from the entrance. "But we can." Admiral James Thompson strode into the lobby, flanked by representatives from 3 of the largest veteran service organizations in the country. His chest, full of medals, carried the weight of authority, but it was the papers in his hand that commanded attention. "The Combined Veterans Alliance Fund," he announced, "a joint venture between major veteran organizations to protect properties serving our military community. We've been watching Pinnacle's activities with great interest." Catherine quickly scanned the documents he provided. This is a fully funded counteroffer. They're not just matching Pinnacle's bid. They're establishing a nationwide program to protect veteran-focused properties. With an interesting twist, the Admiral continued. "Every property in the program will be partially owned by the veterans it serves. No more corporate raiders destroying healing spaces for profit." Barrett stepped forward, his military bearing returning as he faced his former co-conspirators. "I can help with that. Everything I know about Pinnacle's methods, their targets, their weaknesses, it's all yours. Maybe I can't undo what I've done, but I can help prevent it from happening again." Sterling's face contorted with rage. "You're making a mistake. All of you. These properties could be worth billions under proper management." "They already are worth billions," Jack interrupted. "Not in dollars, but in lives saved, families healed, warriors who found their way home. And that's something you'll never understand." Through the lobby windows, more vehicles were arriving, veteran-owned food trucks offering free meals to guests, motorcycle clubs standing guard, military families coming to show support. The scene was being broadcast, live across multiple news channels, social media exploding with solidarity messages from veteran communities nationwide. "Mr. Sterling," Admiral Thompson said calmly, "I suggest you call your board. Explain how Pinnacle's attempt to destroy veteran sanctuaries is now national news. I'm sure your shareholders will be fascinated by the publicity." Sterling's phone was already buzzing, likely corporate damage control trying to contain the spreading crisis. His carefully constructed takeover was unraveling in real time, broadcast for the world to see. "This isn't over," he threatened. But his corporate confidence had evaporated. "Our lawyers will have their hands full with federal investigations," Catherine completed. "The FBI is particularly interested in how Pinnacle used insider VA information to target vulnerable properties. I believe the term is corporate espionage." As Sterling and his team retreated, surrounded by Rodriguez's security detail, Jack turned to address the gathered crowd. Veterans young and old, staff members, families, all united in defense of something more valuable than profit margins. "Today wasn't just about saving one hotel," he began, his voice carrying the weight of command. "It was about standing up for every veteran who needs a place to heal, to rebuild, to find their way forward. Thanks to all of you, Victory Heights will not only survive, it will become a model for protecting veteran spaces nationwide." Admiral Thompson nodded in agreement. "The Combined Veterans Alliance Fund is just the beginning. We're creating a network of protected properties, each partially owned by the veterans it serves. No more corporate raiders destroying healing spaces for profit." The lobby erupted in cheers, but Jack wasn't finished. He turned to Barrett, his former mentor, now looking both defeated and relieved. "You once taught me that leadership means admitting when you're wrong and working to make it right," Jack said quietly. "The question is, are you ready to help us protect what you almost helped destroy?" Barrett straightened, years of military discipline visible in his bearing. "Just tell me where to start." The battle for Victory Heights was ending, but a larger mission was just beginning. The question was, could this single stand against corporate greed become a movement to protect veteran communities across America? The aftermath of Sterling's retreat brought a different kind of challenge to Victory Heights. As the adrenaline of battle faded, the harder work of rebuilding trust and strengthening relationships began. Jack found himself in the Roosevelt suite, now cleared of Pinnacle's presence, facing the three people whose actions had shaped this crisis: Michael, his betraying friend; Barrett, his fallen mentor; and Catherine, his sister, who had tried to warn him. "The Combined Veterans Alliance Fund will need oversight," Catherine was saying, spreading documents across the antique desk. "They want to establish Victory Heights as their flagship model for veteran-owned properties, but that means rebuilding our management structure from the ground up." Michael stood by the window, watching the continued arrival of supporters below. "I should resign," he said quietly, "after what I did." "Running away isn't the answer," Jack replied, remembering similar conversations with wounded warriors who had lost their way. "The question is, are you willing to rebuild what you almost destroyed?" The CFO turned, his face showing the weight of his actions. "You know why I did it? Not for money. I really believed Pinnacle's pitch about modernization, about making these places financially stronger. By the time I realized their true intentions, they had too much leverage." "Fear makes us do terrible things," Barrett added, his military bearing diminished but not gone. "I told myself the same lies, that we were helping veterans by making these properties more sustainable. Ignored the human cost until it was almost too late." A knock at the door interrupted their reflection. Rodriguez entered with Sarah and Emily, their faces showing a mix of exhaustion and determination. "Sir, we've got situation reports from every department," Rodriguez announced. "Staff morale is high, but they need clear direction. Lots of questions about what happens next." Sarah opened her laptop, displaying a complex spreadsheet. "The Alliance Fund's involvement changes our financial structure significantly. We'll need new policies, new procedures, new ways of ensuring transparency. And we're trending nationwide," Emily added, showing social media feeds. "Veterans Groups across the country want to know how they can protect their local properties. We're becoming a movement, whether we plan to or not. Jack's prosthetic leg ached as he paced the room, remembering similar moments of reconstruction after combat operations. Victory wasn't just about winning the battle, it was about securing the peace that followed. "Michael," he said finally, "you understand our financial systems better than anyone. Instead of resigning, I want you to design new safeguards. Make sure no one can ever manipulate our books again." "Sir?" Michael's voice carried a hint of hope. "Redemption isn't given. It's earned. Show us who you really are." Catherine nodded approvingly. "We'll need that expertise. The Alliance Fund wants to implement similar protections across all their properties. Your mistakes could help prevent others from falling into the same traps." Barrett cleared his throat. "The VA Oversight Committee is meeting next week. They've asked me to testify about Pinnacle's methods, help identify other properties at risk. It won't fix what I've done, but it's a start," Jack finished. "Rodriguez, get Barrett access to everything we have on Pinnacle's operations. Sarah, work with him to document their targeting patterns. Emily, coordinate with veteran groups. Nationwide, they need to know what to watch for." Through the suite's windows, the afternoon sun painted Victory Heights in golden light. The lobby below remained filled with supporters, veterans, families, community members, all united in purpose. The Wall of Honor seemed to glow, each photograph a reminder of promises kept and battles won. "There's something else," Catherine said, pulling out a final document. "The Alliance Fund wants to expand our rehabilitation programs. Not just physical therapy, but comprehensive support, job training, housing assistance, family services. They're calling it the Victory Heights model." Lisa Chen joined them, her therapy group's success rates displayed on her tablet. "We're already getting calls from VA hospitals nationwide. They want to partner with us, create a network of healing spaces that corporations can't touch. It's not just about saving properties anymore," Rodriguez added. "It's about building something stronger, something owned by the veterans themselves." Jack touched the photograph of James Cooper on his desk, remembering their shared dream of creating sanctuaries for wounded warriors. That dream had survived betrayal, corporate raids, and personal failure. Now it was growing into something even bigger. "Michael, draft a new business model incorporating veteran ownership. Barrett, use your VA connections to identify properties that need protection. Catherine, create a legal framework that can be replicated nationwide. Rodriguez, develop security protocols that can be shared with other veteran facilities." "And you, sir?" Rodriguez asked. Jack smiled, feeling the familiar weight of command. "I'm going downstairs to talk to our people. They've fought alongside us. They deserve to know the path forward." As they moved to implement his orders, Jack remembered something his commanding officer had said after their worst firefight. "The hardest part isn't winning the battle. It's building something worth fighting for in the first place." Victory Heights had become more than a hotel. It was now a symbol of resistance against corporate greed, a model for veteran empowerment, and a reminder that some things were worth more than profit margins. The question was, could they transform this single victory into a lasting change for veteran communities across the nation? The morning after Sterling's retreat, Victory Heights pulsed with renewed purpose. Jack stood in the lobby watching the sunrise paint the Wall of Honor in golden light. Each photograph a testament to the battles they'd fought, both past and present. The sound of construction caught his attention. Maintenance crews were already restoring the veteran program's spaces that had been marked for conversion into luxury amenities. "First group of Alliance Fund representatives just arrived," Rodriguez reported, appearing at his side with his usual tactical precision. "They're here to study our operations, understand what makes Victory Heights different." "Different indeed," Where other hotels measured success in profit margins, Victory Heights measured it in lives transformed. As if to emphasize this point, Jack watched Lisa Chen leading her morning rehabilitation session in the garden, veterans supporting each other through physical therapy, their determination visible in every movement. "Sir!" Emily called out, hurrying over with her tablet. "You need to see this. Veterans groups across the country are organizing similar resistance movements. 3 properties in Colorado just blocked Pinnacle takeover attempts. A military family housing complex in Texas formed their own ownership cooperative." The lobby was filling with its usual morning crowd, but something had changed. Veterans who had once been just guests now moved with the confidence of stakeholders. Staff members who had feared for their jobs now greeted each other with renewed purpose. Catherine emerged from the conference room where she'd been working through the night. "The Victory Heights model is taking shape," she announced, spreading blueprints across the front desk. "Every department will have veteran representation in management. Rehabilitation programs will be protected by ironclad legal provisions. Most importantly, a percentage of ownership will be reserved for the veterans we serve." Michael joined them, his accounting expertise now focused on protecting rather than exploiting. "The numbers are remarkable. When you prioritize mission over margin, the financial success follows naturally. Our veteran programs aren't just sustainable, they're driving growth." "Because they're real," Barrett added, approaching with a stack of VA documents. "Not corporate wellness initiatives designed for stockholder reports, but genuine healing spaces created by veterans for veterans." Jack watched Captain Wright mentoring a group of newly arrived wounded warriors, sharing his own recovery story. The young officer had become a symbol of Victory Heights' transformation, from patient to leader, from recipient to provider of hope. "The Alliance Fund Board is impressed," Admiral Thompson said, joining their gathering. "They want to implement similar programs across their entire network, but they need something more than just business plans and legal frameworks." "They need our soul," Jack responded, understanding immediately. "The intangible elements that make Victory Heights work." As if on cue, George from maintenance appeared with his own contribution. "Found these in storage," he said, unveiling a collection of unit flags and military memorabilia that had been slated for removal. "Thought it was time to bring them back out. Remind everyone what we're really about." The morning sun now filled the lobby completely, highlighting the activity throughout the hotel. In the Liberty Lounge, veteran guests mingled with local military families, sharing stories and support. The culinary program's kitchen buzzed with energy as former service members trained for new careers. Even the business center had been transformed into a resource hub for veteran entrepreneurs. "We're getting calls from veteran-owned businesses nationwide," Sarah reported, joining the group with fresh data. "They want to form a network of preferred providers, everything from supplies to services, all supporting the veteran community." Lisa Chen approached with her own update. "The VA is interested in expanding our rehabilitation partnerships. They see Victory Heights as a model for integrating medical care with community support." Jack's prosthetic leg ached slightly as he moved through the lobby, but the pain now felt like a reminder rather than a burden. Each step took him past another example of Victory Heights' mission: a PTSD support group meeting in the garden, a job skills workshop in the conference room, a military family finding respite in the quiet corners. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, "the media's asking for a statement about the nationwide response to our stand against Pinnacle." Jack paused by the photograph of James Cooper, remembering their shared vision of creating a place where wounded warriors could heal with a dignity. That vision had survived betrayal and corporate raids, emerging stronger, more defined. "Tell them this isn't about one hotel fighting back," he replied. "It's about establishing a new model for veteran care and support. Every property we protect, every program we save, becomes part of a larger mission." Admiral Thompson nodded, approvingly. The old way of doing things, treating veteran services as charity cases or profit centers, that's over. Victory Heights proves there's a better path. The lobby continued to fill with more visitors, veteran advocates studying their programs, military family support groups seeking partnerships, even property developers interested in the sustainable model of veteran-focused facilities. We're not just saving spaces, Catherine added, watching the activity. We're creating a movement. Every veteran who finds healing here becomes part of something larger, a community that can't be bought, sold or dismantled for profit. As the morning progressed, Jack saw Victory Heights with new eyes. The hotel had transformed from a target of corporate greed into a blueprint for veteran empowerment. The question now was, how far could this model spread, and how many more lives? Could it touch? The next week at Victory Heights brought rapid transformation as new policies and programs took shape. The executive office, once isolated on the top floor, had been relocated to the lobby level. Jack insisted on the move, believing leadership should be accessible to those they served. Latest implementation report, Sarah announced during their morning briefing, held in what had once been Sterling's planned luxury suite, but was now a veteran resource center. All departments have integrated veteran representation into their management teams. The ownership transition program is ahead of schedule. The changes were visible everywhere. The spa that Pinnacle had planned to convert into a high-end retreat now offered specialized services for wounded warriors. The former executive dining room had become a community space where veteran-owned businesses could host meetings and networking events. Medical partnership expansion is confirmed, Lisa, Chen reported, displaying statistics on the wall screen. 3 major VA hospitals want to implement our rehabilitation model. They're particularly interested in how we combine physical therapy with community integration. Rodriguez, who now headed both security and veteran outreach, added his update. First group of veteran owners completed their orientation. 20 former guests who've invested in Victory Heights through the Alliance Fund program. They're already proposing improvements based on their experiences here. The transformation went beyond surface changes. In the kitchen, Chef Marcus, a former Army cook who'd graduated from their culinary program, was developing new training curricula. We're partnering with local restaurants, he explained, creating guaranteed job placements for program graduates. Emily managed their expanding communication network from what had been Michael's private office, now converted into a media center. Veteran advocacy groups nationwide are studying our model. 3 more properties successfully prevented corporate takeovers this week using our playbook. Catherine had transformed the legal department into a resource center for veteran property rights. We're creating templates for other facilities, she explained. Everything from ownership structures to program protections, making it harder for companies like Pinnacle to target veteran spaces. Michael, working to redeem himself, had developed new financial safeguards. Complete transparency, he demonstrated, showing real-time data displays in the lobby. Every guest, every veteran stakeholder can see exactly how their investment supports our mission. The Wall of Honor had expanded, now wrapping around the entire lobby. New photographs showed not just individual veterans, but moments of community, support, staff members rallying against Pinnacle, guests defending their sanctuary, families finding hope within these walls. Barrett, working to make amends, led a task force identifying vulnerable properties nationwide. We're creating an early warning system, he explained to a group of veteran advocates, using my insider knowledge to protect other facilities before they're targeted. In the garden, once slated to become a luxury pool, Jack found Captain Wright conducting a peer support session. The young officer had become a symbol of Victory Heights' evolution, from guest to leader, from recipient of care to provider of hope. They wanted to turn this into a sunbathing deck, Wright commented as Jack approached. Now it's where warriors help other warriors heal. Funny how things work out. The Liberty Lounge buzzed with activity as veteran-owned businesses presented to potential investors. The Alliance Fund had established a microloan program, helping former service members build economic security alongside physical recovery. Occupancy rates are at record levels, Sarah reported later that day. But it's the length of stay that's most significant. Veterans aren't just visiting, they're becoming part of the community. George from maintenance, now head of facility operations, led a team of veteran apprentices through their daily rounds, teaching them more than just repairs, he explained proudly. They're learning how to maintain a sanctuary. The hotel's reputation grew. Media coverage shifted from the dramatic standoff with Pinnacle to the sustainable model of veteran-focused care. Other properties sought guidance on implementing similar changes. It's not just about programs, Jack explained to a group of visiting hotel operators. It's about creating spaces where healing happens naturally, where community support is built into every aspect of operations. The transformation reached every corner of Victory Heights. The business center became an entrepreneurship incubator. Conference rooms hosted veteran support groups. Even the gift shop now featured products from veteran-owned companies. We're seeing something remarkable, Admiral Thompson observed during an Alliance Fund review. Victory Heights isn't just operating programs, it's creating a new paradigm for veteran support. The proof was in the details. Veterans who'd completed rehabilitation returned as mentors. Families who'd found healing became advocates. Staff, members who'd stood against corporate takeover, now helped other properties resist similar threats. Remember when this was just a hotel? Catherine asked Jack as they watched the evening activities. A group of veterans practiced adaptive sports in the courtyard while families gathered for a support group dinner. It was never just a hotel, Jack replied, touching his prosthetic leg. We just needed a reminder of what it could become. The sun set over Victory Heights, illuminating the Wall of Honor and the countless stories it represented. Each photograph, each success story, each moment of healing proved that some battles were worth fighting, especially those that helped others find their way home. 1 month after the standoff with Pinnacle, Victory Heights hosted its first Veteran Stakeholders Summit. The Grand Ballroom, once reserved for luxury events, now filled with former guests who had become part owners through the Alliance Fund program. Each face in the crowd told a story of transformation, not just personal recovery, but evolution from recipient of services to guardian of the mission. Latest impact report, Sarah presented to the assembled group, her data displays, showing more than just numbers. Rehabilitation success rates up 40% since implementing peer support ownership. Job placement rates through our vocational programs reaching 90%. But the real success stories are sitting in this room. Captain Wright wheeled to the podium, his silver star catching the light. 6 months ago, I came here barely, able to face tomorrow. Found more than just physical therapy, found purpose. Today, I'm helping design adaptive sports programs for 3 new facilities using the Victory Heights model. The evidence of success filled every corner of the property. In the culinary training kitchen, Chef Marcus supervised graduating students preparing the evening's celebration dinner. Each chef in training wore the program's new emblem, a spatula crossed with a sword, symbolizing their transition from warrior to civilian professional. 4 of our graduates opened their own restaurants this month, Marcus reported proudly. 2 more landed executive chef positions, but more importantly, they're all hiring fellow veterans, creating a network of support through employment. Lisa Chen's rehabilitation department had expanded beyond physical therapy. We're seeing Remarkable results with our integrated approach, she explained to visiting medical professionals. Physical recovery alongside career training, family support, and community integration. The holistic model is becoming a new standard for VA facilities nationwide. The Victory Heights approach proved contagious. Rodriguez's security team now conducted training for other veteran-focused properties, teaching them to identify and resist corporate takeover attempts. 7 facilities blocked Pinnacle-style acquisitions this month alone, he reported. Our defensive playbook is becoming the industry standard. Michael, continuing his path to redemption, had developed a financial transparency system that other properties were rushing to adopt. Complete accountability, he demonstrated to visiting executives. Every dollar tracked, every program's impact measured. We're proving that serving veterans isn't just morally right, it's financially sustainable. Barrett's insider knowledge had evolved into a nationwide early warning system. 24 properties identified as potential targets, he briefed the stakeholders. But now we're reaching them before the corporate raiders can make their move. The predators are becoming the hunted. Catherine's legal framework had become a template for veteran property protection. We've helped 30 facilities restructure with veteran ownership components, she announced. Each one strengthens the network, makes it harder for profit-driven companies to dismantle these sanctuaries. The wall of honor continued to grow, but now it told a different kind of story. Alongside individual victories, it showed moments of community triumph. Veteran business owners mentoring newcomers, families supporting each other, staff and guests united in purpose. Emily managed an expanding media presence from the communications center. Success breeds success, she explained, showing viral social media posts. Every victory against corporate takeovers, every veteran finding their path forward, inspires others to join the movement. The Liberty Lounge had become a hub of veteran entrepreneurship. Today, a former guest pitched his business plan to Alliance Fund investors. "Found my confidence here," he told the audience. "Now I'm creating jobs for other veterans, continuing the cycle of support." George's maintenance apprenticeship program had expanded to include building management training, teaching them to care for more than just facilities, he said, watching his students learn the complex systems that kept Victory Heights running. They're learning to maintain communities. Jack observed it all from the lobby, his prosthetic leg a constant reminder of why these transformations mattered. A group of newly arrived wounded warriors toured the property, their faces showing the same mix of uncertainty and hope he'd once felt. "Remember your first day here?" Admiral Thompson asked, joining him. The Alliance Fund leader had become a frequent visitor, studying the Victory Heights model for nationwide implementation. "Felt lost," Jack admitted, "like many of our guests. But that's the point, isn't it? Creating a place where lost warriors can find their way back." The impact extended beyond the property's walls. Local businesses proudly displayed veteran-owned signs, many graduates of Victory Heights programs. The surrounding community had embraced its role as a sanctuary for military families, with support services and housing initiatives spreading throughout the area. Latest research data is remarkable, Sarah shared later that evening. Properties using our model show significantly higher recovery rates, better long-term outcomes, stronger community integration. We're not just helping individuals, we're changing the entire approach to veteran care. The sun set over Victory Heights, painting the mountains in colors that reminded Jack of dawn ceremonies during his service days. In the garden, a PTSD support group shared quiet conversation. The kitchen hummed with dinner preparation. The business center hosted veteran entrepreneurs working late. "Look what grew from one stand against corporate greed," Catherine mused, watching the evening activities. "We didn't just save a hotel, we created a blueprint for saving veteran communities nationwide." The Victory Heights model had become more than a business success story. It was proof that spaces of healing could be protected, that veteran communities could thrive, that promises made to those who served could be kept. Each day brought new evidence that some battles were worth fighting, especially those that helped others win their own wars of recovery and renewal. 3 months after thwarting Pinnacle's takeover, Jack found himself back in room 4 and 12, the same room where he'd begun his undercover mission. The space had been renovated like the rest of Victory Heights, but not in the way Sterling had envisioned. Instead of luxury upgrades, the room now featured adaptive equipment for disabled veterans, a workspace for job seekers, and technology to help military families stay connected. "Full circle," Catherine observed, joining him for their morning review. "Remember when you thought this was just about saving a hotel?" The question made Jack reflect on how much had changed, not just in Victory Heights, but in himself. His prosthetic leg still ached some mornings, but the pain now reminded him of battles won rather than losses endured. "Found something interesting in the archives," Sarah announced, entering with her ever-present laptop. "Your original business plan for Victory Heights, the one you wrote in the hospital after." She gestured at his leg. Jack remembered those early days, plotting hope while learning to walk again. "How does it compare to what we've built?" "That's just it," Sarah smiled. "Everything we're doing now, the veteran ownership, the integrated support, the community focus, it's all there in your original vision. We just needed a threat like Pinnacle to remind us what really mattered." Through the window, they watched Lisa Chen leading an adaptive sports session. Among her participants was Michael, the former CFO, now dedicated to veteran program development. His path to redemption had become its own success story, proving that second chances could strengthen rather than weaken an organization. "Interesting data point," Sarah continued. "Our financial performance actually improved after implementing the veteran-centric changes. Turns out doing the right thing is good business." Rodriguez appeared with his morning security update, but today it carried a different tone. "Sir, remember those corporate scouts we spotted last week? Turned out they weren't planning a takeover. They want to study our model. Major hotel chains are starting to recognize the value of veteran-focused properties." The Victory Heights approach had indeed sparked industry-wide changes. Barrett, working to atone for his role in Pinnacle's schemes, now consulted with properties nationwide, teaching them to build sanctuaries instead of profit centers, he explained. "The lessons I learned the hard way might help others choose the right path first." In the lobby, George supervised a team of veteran maintenance apprentices. The program had expanded beyond basic repairs to include facility management and property development, teaching them to build and protect spaces like this, he said proudly. "Next generation of sanctuary guardians." Captain Wright rolled past, leading a group of new arrivals on orientation. The young officer had become Victory Heights' most effective ambassador, his own journey from wounded warrior to community leader, inspiring others to see possibility in their challenges. "You've changed too," Catherine observed, watching Jack interact with guests and staff. "Remember when you spent most of your time in board meetings and budget reviews?" She was right. The corporate owner had become a present leader. The businessman had remembered his warrior spirit. Each day brought new opportunities to fulfill the promises made in that field hospital in Kandahar. Emily's media center had documented the transformation. "Look at these," she said, displaying photographs from the past 3 months. Each image captured a moment of change. Veterans becoming owners, staff becoming family, wounded warriors finding strength in community. The Liberty Lounge hosted a different kind of meeting now. Instead of corporate strategists plotting takeovers, veteran entrepreneurs shared ideas and supported each other's dreams. The space hummed with the energy of possibility. Latest community impact report Sarah shared during their afternoon briefing. Local veteran unemployment down 60%, homeless veteran rates lowest in the state. Family support program, participation tripled. But the real measure of success walked through their doors each day. Veterans seeking more than just accommodation found a community that understood their journey. Families facing challenges discovered networks of support. Wounded warriors encountered not just medical care, but pathways to purpose. You know what really changed? Rodriguez reflected during their evening walkthrough. We stopped seeing this place as an asset to protect and remembered it's a mission to fulfill. The Wall of Honor told the story best. Alongside photographs of individual victories, it now displayed moments of transformation. Michael teaching financial literacy to veteran entrepreneurs. Barrett helping other properties resist corporate. Raiders, Wright mentoring newly arrived warriors. Found something else in the archives, Sarah mentioned as day turned to evening. Letter from James Cooper, written just before. She handed Jack a worn envelope. Inside, his fallen friend's words brought the journey full circle. If we make it home, brother, let's build something that matters. Not just a business, but a place where warriors can heal, where service continues. In a different way. Promise me you'll remember what really matters. Jack touched his prosthetic leg, remembering the cost of that promise and the battles fought to keep it. Victory Heights had become more than they'd dreamed. Not just a sanctuary for healing, but a model for protecting veteran communities nationwide. He would be proud, Catherine said softly, understanding the weight of the moment, not just of what we saved, but of what we've built in its place. As night fell over Victory Heights, the property glowed with purpose. In the garden, a PTSD group shared quiet conversation. The kitchen rang with laughter as culinary students prepared dinner. The business center buzzed with veteran entrepreneurs working late. Each space, each program, each moment of connection proved that some battles changed more than just territory. They transformed the warriors themselves. Victory Heights had become living proof that the greatest growth often came not from avoiding challenges, but from choosing to fight the battles that truly mattered. 6 months after the pinnacle confrontation, Victory Heights hosted a national conference on veteran property protection. The Grand Ballroom, once nearly converted to luxury event space, now held representatives from veteran-focused facilities across the country. Each attendee carried similar stories of corporate threats and community resistance, drawn to learn from the model that had changed the landscape of veteran care. The Victory Heights approach isn't just about protecting properties, Admiral Thompson addressed the gathering. It's about reimagining how we serve those who served us. Today, we're announcing the Veterans Sanctuary Initiative, a nationwide program to establish and protect spaces of healing. Jack watched from the back of the room as Catherine presented the legal framework that had become a blueprint for resistance. 50 properties have already adopted these protections, she reported. Another 100 are in the process. Each success makes the next defense stronger. Sarah's data told a compelling story. Properties using the Victory Heights model show remarkable outcomes, she demonstrated. Rehabilitation success rates doubled. Long-term recovery metrics significantly improved. Most importantly, veteran ownership participation creates sustainable community support. The transformation extended far beyond their walls. Local businesses that had once feared losing luxury customers now thrived serving the veteran community. Property values had stabilized as military families put down roots. The area had become known as a hub of veteran entrepreneurship and recovery. Remember when Sterling claimed luxury development was the only path to profitability? Michael asked during a break. The former CFO now led financial training for other properties implementing veteran ownership programs. Turns out dignity and Purpose generate better returns than high-end amenities. Barrett's presentation drew particular attention. I've seen both sides, he admitted to the crowd, helped corporate raiders target these sanctuaries, then learned why they must be protected. Here's how they operate, and here's how we stop them. Rodriguez's security team had expanded into a nationwide network. Early warning system is active in 30 states, he reported. The moment a corporate predator starts circling a veteran property, the entire community mobilizes. In the Liberty Lounge, now a hub of veteran entrepreneurship, Captain Wright led a session on adaptive program development. Victory Heights taught me that healing isn't just about physical recovery, he explained. It's about finding new ways to serve, new missions to accomplish. Lisa Chen's rehabilitation program had become a model for VA facilities nationwide. Integration is key, she demonstrated. Medical care, career training, family support, everything working together to support the whole warrior. The culinary program, under Chef Marcus's leadership, had spawned similar initiatives across the country. Every graduate becomes a mentor, he explained, watching his students prepare lunch for the conference. The kitchen becomes another kind of healing space. Emily managed live streams to veteran communities unable to attend in person. The movement keeps growing, she reported, showing social media engagement metrics. Each success story inspires more properties to adopt. The model, George's maintenance apprenticeship program, had evolved into a facilities management academy, teaching them to build and protect spaces like this, he said proudly. Next generation of sanctuary guardians spreading nationwide. As evening approached, Jack found himself again in room 412, where the journey had begun. The space had become a model room, showing visiting properties how to combine practical support with dignified accommodation. Found something you need to see, Sarah said, joining him with her laptop. Remember those profit projections Sterling used to justify the takeover? Compare them to our actual performance under the veteran-focused model. The numbers were striking. Victory Heights hadn't just survived, it had thrived. But the real success couldn't be measured in financial statements. It showed in the faces of recovering warriors, in the strength of military families, in the pride of veteran entrepreneurs building new futures. We're not just protecting properties anymore, Catherine observed. We're creating a new standard for how society serves its veterans. Each facility we help becomes another beacon of hope. The Wall of Honor had expanded again, now including photographs from other properties implementing the Victory Heights model. Each image told a story of transformation, corporate targets becoming community sanctuaries, profit centers evolving into healing spaces. Admiral Thompson joined them for a final evening review. The Alliance Fund is fully committed, he announced. Resources are in place to support any veteran property seeking to implement these changes. The corporate raiders are learning to look elsewhere. As night fell over Victory Heights, the property hummed with purpose. Conference attendees shared stories and strategies. Veteran guests connected with counterparts from across the country. Staff members taught their methods to visiting facilities. Jack touched his prosthetic leg, remembering the promise made in that field hospital in Kandahar. Victory Heights had become more than just a sanctuary for wounded warriors. It had sparked a movement to protect and create such spaces nationwide. James would be proud, Catherine said softly, understanding her brother's thoughts, not just of what we built here, but of how it's helping others build similar sanctuaries everywhere. The future of Victory Heights stretched before them, not as a single property, but as a model for transformation. Each day brought new opportunities to prove that some spaces were worth more than profit margins. They were worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth multiplying, until every veteran could find their way home. 1 year to the day after Jack Morrison had walked into his own hotel in disguise, Victory Heights celebrated its transformation with a special ceremony. The morning sun painted the mountains in colors that reminded him of dawn watches during his service days as veterans, staff, and community members gathered in the garden that had nearly become a luxury pool. Breaking news, Emily announced, hurrying over with her tablet. Pinnacle Resorts just announced they're abandoning their veteran property acquisition program. Their stock dropped 30% after our story went national. Sterling resigned as CEO. But the real victory wasn't in corporate defeats. It showed in the faces gathering for the ceremony. Wounded warriors who had found healing, families who had discovered support, staff members who had become family. Each person represented a battle won not just against corporate greed, but against despair, isolation, and loss of purpose. Final numbers are in, Sarah reported, her data displays showing more than statistics. 117 properties nationwide have adopted the Victory Heights model. Veteran ownership. Programs established in 38 states. Support networks active in over 200 communities. Michael, fully redeemed through his dedication to the mission, presented the financial impact. Proof that serving veterans isn't just right, it's sustainable. Every property that converted to our model shows improved performance. We're changing the entire industry's understanding of value. Barrett, who had transformed from betrayer to protector, shared his own milestone. Last potential corporate raid blocked last week. They're learning to avoid veteran properties entirely. Our sanctuaries are becoming too strong to target. Rodriguez's security team had evolved into something larger. We're not just protecting buildings anymore, he explained. We're securing the future of veteran care. Each property we help defend becomes another link in the support chain. Catherine's legal framework had become industry standard. Every state now has laws protecting veteran-focused properties, she announced. The predators can't just change tactics. We've closed every avenue they might use. The ceremony began with a tribute to James Cooper, whose sacrifice had inspired Victory Heights' creation. His photograph on the Wall of Honor seemed to watch over the gathering, reminding everyone of promises kept and battles won. A year ago, Jack addressed the crowd, someone tried to convince us that profit margins mattered more than healing spaces, that luxury amenities were worth more than veteran programs, that corporate efficiency should replace community support. He touched his prosthetic leg, the familiar gesture now carrying new meaning. They didn't understand what makes places like Victory Heights special. It's not the buildings or the programs. It's the promise we keep to every warrior who walks. Through these doors, you are not alone. Your service matters, your healing matters, your future matters. Captain Wright, now Director of Adaptive Programs, shared the impact on individual lives. When I first came here, I thought my story was over. Victory Heights showed me it was just beginning. Now we're helping others write new chapters of their own. Lisa Chen's rehabilitation department had become a national training center. We're not just healing bodies, she explained. We're rebuilding lives, restoring purpose, reconnecting families. The medical community is finally understanding that recovery requires community. The culinary program celebrated its 100th graduate. Chef Marcus beamed with pride as former students, now successful restaurant owners, catered the event. Each dish represented a journey from warrior to entrepreneur, from recovery to purpose. George's maintenance team had expanded into a workforce development powerhouse. Teaching them more than repairs, he said, watching his apprentices prepare. The venue. They're learning to build and maintain spaces of healing. Admiral Thompson announced the Alliance Fund's latest initiative. Victory Heights proved what's possible when we prioritize mission over margin. Now we're taking that lesson nationwide, ensuring every veteran can find sanctuary when they need it. The Wall of Honor had become a testament to transformation. Alongside individual victories, it showed the ripple effects. Other properties saved, communities strengthened, lives rebuilt. Each photograph told a story of promise kept. As evening approached, Jack found himself back in room 412. The space where his undercover mission began now served as a model for other properties, showing how to combine practical support with dignified accommodation. "Full circle," Catherine said, joining him. "Remember when you thought you were just trying to save one hotel?" Through the window, they watched the day's activities wind down. In the garden, a PTSD support group shared quiet conversation. The kitchen hummed with culinary, students preparing dinner. The business center buzzed with veteran entrepreneurs working late. "James would be proud," she continued softly, "not just of what we saved, but of what grew from that stand against corporate greed." Jack touched the photograph of his fallen friend, remembering their shared dream of creating places where wounded warriors could heal with dignity. Victory Heights had become more than they'd imagined, not just a sanctuary, but a movement that would ensure such sanctuaries survived for generations to come. As night fell over the mountains, the property glowed with purpose. Each light represented a promise kept, a life transformed, a battle won not just for profit, but for something far more valuable: the right of every veteran to find their way home. The story of Victory Heights would be told not just in business journals or media reports, but in the countless lives touched by its transformation. It stood as proof that some spaces were worth more than luxury amenities or profit margins. They were worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth multiplying, until every warrior who needed healing could find their way to sanctuary. In the end, the greatest victory wasn't defeating corporate raiders or saving one hotel. It was remembering what truly mattered. That sometimes the most important battles we fight are the ones that help others win their own wars of recovery, purpose, and renewal.